Right, back on In Focus. The African Transformation Movement has expressed its views on life imprisonment without parole for South Africans convicted of colluding with foreign nationals in identity document fraud. The party stands resolute against the fraudulent activities that undermine the rule of law. Here to unpack their position, we're joined by Zama Ntshona, speaks on behalf of ATM. Zama, good to have you. Thank you very much for coming on. What is causing criminals to make a mockery of our passport system? Let me put it that way.
Thank you so much. Well, as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that when you're looking at the status quo in our country, the lawlessness that we find within our country, and the truly what we may call people not taking note or heed of the rule of law, it is truly one appalling that we have that, but also coming closer to your question, it seems as if either when it comes to implementation and when it comes to people being processed through the justice system, there is just something that is not communicating loud enough that to be a lawbreaker in this country is not acceptable. But also, seemingly, as the people of this country, maybe we have gotten away with a lot, and we thought that continuing to do what we are doing is actually right. Something is not right when it comes to the clarity of the message, when it comes to communicating that lawlessness should never be the order of the day and must not be accepted in this country.
So I had a look. I mean, I quickly ran through. I don't think there's any. Maybe you might know sentences that would have been more severe and more lengthy than the ones that I saw. I think one was about 26 years. Another one was about 24, 25 years. Of course, they become reduced ultimately within the system because of parole and other things that come into effect. But I was quite interested in the comments of the judge on one particular matter, where the judge says, maybe what we need to admit is that the department has been captured to the extent that fraud is endemic within the department, where senior officials, outsourced security companies, everybody's complicit, everybody turns a blind eye to what is going on there. Of course, the department says, no, these are just a few rotten potatoes. It's not really that way. What is your feeling as lawmakers?
You know, I may be captured as an individual by that particular assertion. What makes me to lean towards that assertion is that the frequency of the occurrence of these incidences makes you to wonder, are these people familiar with the laws of this country? If yes, why would something that you would say is a layperson or not a practitioner within that particular directorate be easy for you to comprehend, and yet a practitioner in some cases of years in the trade is struggling to actually comprehend? And it then pushes you to the next level, which then makes you think that truly people are intentionally actually devaluing the offering within these systems for one reason or the other. You know, the idea of a captured directorate, whether it is captured by self-interest or captured by those who they collude with, but this begins to be something that rings a bell or gives a sound explanation, because truly it does not make sense that experts and practitioners in the space wouldn't know what to do and wouldn't know what to look for when they interact with these individuals. And the worst one now is that there is a clear collusion. For instance, we have a recent widely publicized story of Chidima, who is now living her life, who is now pronouncing that I have always been Nigerian. And that story, most people look at the rosy side of success, where people say no one can actually slow you down when your moment has come. But they've forgotten that for 23 years, there's an individual who suffered a great deal. Now, when people only are self-centered, when they make these decisions, they forget that the majority of the people of this country who have nowhere else to go are going to suffer because of that. So I am tempted to say that that assertion of being captured is an assertion that is not very far from the truth because of what we have seen. And again, of course, this is not just the only isolated case. This case of two Ethiopian nationals and a South African who were just arrested by the Hawks recently is also another case, and many other cases. The Lubisi report also speaks to that. So for us as the African Transformation Movement, we would be captured with that idea that truly there could be capture of the department on this matter.
Those who come into the defense of the said South Africans caught in fraud are saying, well, these individuals, yes, they're going to go to jail, but two, they're going to lose their jobs. That is punishment enough. Don't punish them any further than that.
All right, let's just talk about the child who lost 23 years of her life because an identity that is hers has been taken by somebody else. Do you think that when you have lost your job and you have a few years in jail, you have paid enough to compensate for what she has lost? And how many more South Africans have been displaced in their own native country, taken their right of birth, right to identity? And how do we compensate for that? And if these people continuously do this, it means to a certain extent that whatever we are doing is a slap on the wrist compared to the risk, because when you take a risk, you weigh the pros and cons. Seemingly, what they get out of this, because of the continuous nature of this, seems to suggest that there is more to this if I risk my job and actually venture into this. But now the biggest problem is that if that is the case, now what about the displaced hundreds of thousands of South Africans because of syndicates that are operating within the country and captured individuals within the department? Yeah. This is why the African Transformation Movement, we feel that we are going to run around in circles where we have willing participants who are willing to collude with our brothers and sisters from elsewhere around the world. But the only way they can actually get the extent of this is that if you sell an identity of a South African, understand that you are then saying, I am also giving up my freedom. You have taken somebody's freedom, and for doing that, a society will then take your freedom as well.
Yeah. Department having done its assessment, I want to get your view if we are administering the right medicine to this problem. They said, no, part of the challenge, if you understand these two cases that we're talking about, including the very recent one, which involves a South African national and two Ethiopians, is that the method of operation is that you've got an international syndicate, if you like, that recruits young people from South Africa and young people overseas that require the passport. They recruit an individual in the department to be complicit in this. But what makes the whole process possible is the flexibility afforded to passport applicants and those who collect the passport. So how we solve this, let's confine, for example, the collection of the passport to the office where you applied for it. 2, only the person who applied must collect the passport. 3, the passport must only be activated by fingerprints. 4, if it's a minor, only the parents legally of the minor can come and apply. Are these solutions we are administering good enough?
We are getting there. It's a trial and error situation. Sometimes we're going to take this decision and see that maybe we've just gone overboard, but experience can teach us, because we're dealing with smart individuals who are trying to outsmart the system. They study the system, study its flaws, and in doing so, try and find where the loopholes are. So sometimes you are going to give a remedy, and only in the true experience of that remedy which you have given, we can actually get to a point where we see that have we holistically dealt with the challenge. We are getting there. I think biometric scans are one of the ways of trying to deal with it. The issue of an individual who comes to the office and actually be physically there, we are getting close to actually solving the problem. At this stage, we are not saying that any of those are not getting closer to actually solving the problem, but the actual test of the thoroughness of the system in eradicating such activities is going to be when we see the implementation. But any activity and any action that seems to suggest or that is working towards closing the gap, closing the door, so that you only have but an eye of a needle that allows people to go through the other side. I think that is what we need right now, because seemingly we have opened the doors wide open right now without proper scrutiny, and we're left now with a predicament that even that which we do not want has actually made way to South Africa.
Yeah, let's speak about maybe what other people might say to this proposal and say, well, it seems you're punishing the South African even more severely than the foreign national who would have obtained a fraudulent passport.
Well, it is true that our laws must not be laws that seem to suggest that we are a banana republic of some sort. We have called for the harshest sentences possible. But without an enabler, which is a South African, none of these syndicates would actually gain entry to this country. It is us who are opening the floodgates. It is us who are opening the doors. It is us who have access to these directorates. Without us, South Africans, no one can actually just willy-nilly come in this country and they do as they please. So we need to understand the cost of what we are doing. So as much as we will punish those who are coming from outside our borders, but if South Africans do not value or do not understand the value of security, securing their space and protecting each other, they are easily giving rights to other people, even the identities of their fellow South Africans, then we still have a problem. This is why we feel it is imperative that those within the borders must close the doors. And the only way when things are like this, we could actually get closer to that is when we say there are repercussions for actually opening a door without following due process. Processes must be followed. Remember, we are not anti people coming to South Africa. In fact, we are saying people should come to the country, but people must be law-abiding and they must actually adhere to the rules and regulations of this country.
Yeah. Adding another layer to it is that, well, we'll arrest the officials, we'll arrest the foot soldiers, if you like, but the syndicate leaders, it doesn't seem we are able to get to them.
Yeah, that is true. There are always layers to these problems. You don't solve it as an individual. This is where now we are part of the African Union. We are part of international bodies as South Africa. This is why it becomes crucial now to actually strengthen the relationships with other countries. Now, remember, I just said right now, the fact that we are saying that South Africans must be prioritized in their country, and anyone who wants to come in South Africa must do that via the necessary laws. It does not mean then South continent or the world. This is where now it becomes important that we actually are in talks in a global effort to eradicate such occurrences such as this. We're not the only ones who are being targeted. So it is in the interest of other players in the space to actually say, you know what, it is about time that we deal with this. Let's find these individuals. They're not up in the sky. They live amongst us. They found within the 54-member states in the African Union and within the 7 continents. So we can find them. So if we strengthen those ties, we'll be able eventually not just to deal with the foot soldiers, but deal with the whole value chain.
We saw in the week, for example, some violence around Sunnyside between South Africans and foreign nationals. Is that a concern for you? Is that indicative of something that is beginning to happen within the minds of South Africans, but also maybe even within the minds of those who are visitors in the country?
You know, when you listen to some of these stories, when you listen to how the plight of South Africans, you get to a point where, even though it is not something that we recommend or even applaud when it takes place, but there is, to a certain extent, a state of panic. You know, when you have limited resources and every day there's an influx that is coming in, slowly but surely we are beginning to feel that there is a sense of anxiety that is in the country. People are trying to live their lives, lead good lives, and be able to provide for their children. So one way or the other, when slowly people are feeling that they are being displaced, or they are feeling that communities are being destroyed, whether because of drugs or maybe the microeconomic space is being taken over totally. There are no more Ochawe, no Hadebe within our townships and rural spaces that are running these bazaar shops. Sooner or later, the walls are closing in. And as they are closing in, there will be a state of panic. This is why, then, as the African Transformation Movement, we say the government must be proactive. The government must not wait for the boiling point, must not wait till the people want to lead themselves, because it becomes a problem now. This is why we then call on the government. The government must actually lead. The government must listen to its people. When you begin to see such sporadic attacks that are happening within the country, what do you do as a government? This is why now, as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that you must take leadership. You have been given and entrusted with the power and a mandate to actually lead this country to prosperity and protect the people of this country. Now, you must also protect the people of this country from themselves. And sometimes when we allow anger to lead, when we lack objectivity and impartiality, but we are taking decisions on the basis of the limited means that we have, we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult position. We do not condone it, but government must lead so that the people don't have to lead themselves.
So I don't know how you and your allies in the Progressive Caucus meet and how regularly you meet and how these issues are canvassed. But I mean, you've got some who believe we should open borders, and that is the EFF. How does this sit with your partners and allies within that Progressive Caucus?
Thank you so much. Well, as the Progressive Caucus, we are engaging each other. You would know that there would be many other policy positions that we speak the same voice in. When you speak about issues around expropriation of land without compensation, you would see that generally most people would be of the same view when it comes to such issues. When it comes to issues around NHI, you would see that in general, we are speaking with the same voice. There is a lot more in common within the Progressive Caucus than what actually we are not able to deal with, or maybe the differences that we have as a caucus. So for us as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that we start with what is common as we are working to what maybe separates us. We unite, we move from a united standpoint with the majority of the ideals that we are fighting for. And then we are going to be able to find each other as we move forward on matters that we are not